excuse me? And he's like, you want me? And I'm like, seriously?
Hey fam. It's your girl Ash and I am back with another video, back with another Catherine Tate video, and I'm super duper excited because I love Catherine Tate. Catherine Tate is just so funny. Like, she's just hilarious. I love the Nan character. You guys know that I love the Nan character. I love the Derek character, and you guys wanted me to check out Valley Girl, and I already know it's going to be extremely funny. And if you guys would like to check out my other Catherine Tate videos, the link will be up at the top. And if you guys would like to follow me on Instagram, the link will be down in the description below. And if you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Hit that red button so you can be a part of the family. Don't forget to give your girl a thumbs up. Enough of me talking, let's get straight into this reaction.
I'm like, ew. And he's like, wow. And I'm like, dude. And he's like, cool. And I'm like, so? And he's like, well. And I'm like, fine. And he's like, great. And I'm like, duh. And he's like, what? And I'm like, no. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, bye. And he's like, oh.
That's exactly. Wait, hold up. That's exactly how Valley girls be. They definitely be like that. They be having a blonde hair, and they be having a pink lipstick, and they be having a boobs out and stuff like that. That's exactly how they be. Definitely.
So I'm like, so bored. And he's like, hey there. And I'm like, hey you. And he's like, one hang. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh really? And I'm like, whatever. And he's like, Supremo. And I'm like, uh-oh. And he's like, baby. And I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, you want me? And I'm like, seriously? And he's like, totally. And I'm like, no. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, no way. And he's like, you bet. And I'm like, I don't think so. And he's like, you're right. And I'm like, loser. And he's like, slut. So I'm in this bar, and he comes over, and I'm thinking, oh my god.
And
he's like, hi. And I'm like, hi. And he's like, are you on your own? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, no way. And I'm like, it's true. And he's like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, come on. And he's like, I'm serious. And I'm like, cut it out. And he's like, am I embarrassing you? And I'm like, can we stop? And he's like, I saw you come in. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, can I get you a drink? And I'm like, that'd be great. And he's like, what do you want? And I'm like, a soda. And he's like, is that all? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, on its own. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, don't you drink? And I'm like, no. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, it's none of your business. And he's like, I'm only asking. And I'm like, well, you started it. And he's like, calm down. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And he's like, don't be. And I'm like, why should I? And he's like, back off. And I'm like, fuck you.
Oh my god. No. Hilarious. Oh my goodness. That's exactly how Valley girls be. Like, they say like a lot. And I'm not gonna lie, I used to say like a lot. I still do say like a lot, but I try not to say like as much in my videos because somebody pointed it out and it was like, you always saying like, and I know that I say like all the time. But yes, Valley girls, they say like all the time, like, oh my god, like. And then they swing their hair. Oh my god, I can't believe it. Like, totally. I was like so bored. Like, oh my god, that's exactly how Valley girls be. Listen, once again, Catherine Tate slayed. I love me some Catherine Tate. Point blank, period. There's nobody as of yet, as far as, well, she's the only female that I've watched so far, but she's funny as hell. Like, she's definitely funny as hell. She's in her own lane. Like, I just love her. I know I'm late, years late, but better late than never. And I'm so glad, like, you guys put me on to Catherine Tate and the characters that she played, because I love it. And I don't think any other female is outdoing Catherine Tate, as far as I know right now. Because nobody has suggested any other female. So she must be like the gods of the gods, okay? Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to give your girl a thumbs up. And, like, I'll see you guys, like, in the next video. Bye, fam.